THORChain RUNE is one of the few projects in crypto that's actually doing something new. You have probably watched Coinburrow's great THORChain video the other day. But in this video I will try to add a conclusion. What to actually do with all those facts and information. To do that we need an analogy of conflict. This rune stone is from sometime between year 1070 and year 1100. It says, Thorsten and Frögun raised this stone after their son. Vikings were not great poets, and there was a lot of conflict. As you sailed out towards the horizon in your ship, you knew that you had a small chance for a huge reward, riches beyond imagination, but a high chance for a sudden and violent death. Exactly like buying into any brave crypto project that's sailing where no one has ever sailed before. Like THORChain RUNE. Then there's another very different risk too. The cannon here was put here in the 1600s something to protect the house wall from all the reckless drivers. And in crypto too, there is the constant and often overlooked threat of the day-to-day mundane things like the daily wear of horses and carts, or the constant sell pressure of seed and team tokens, or the risk of teams getting bored when building something that takes 4 to 5 years to get ready. But still, real innovation is what perks my interest, and THORChain RUNE has it. If I had lived at the time, I would have been the Ragnar Lodbrok, risking it all for the unknown. But does THORChain and RUNE really matter? Is this really important enough to be worth loading up our Viking ship and taking the risk? Or are there better bets, richer countries in the east? Let's head back to the studio and find out. There is one misunderstanding to clear up first. What THORChain is a DEX to swap native. But you don't need to hold rune for gas. Contrary to what Guy said actually. And I feel this is an important clarification because people are lazy. If you first had to go somewhere and get runes for gas, most people would never do their first swap. You can swap from native BTC to native ETH through RUNE, but gas is taken from your BTC and your ETH. You don't need to go and get RUNE first. But still, native. So what? Who cares? We have DEXs today. How does that work? Well, we're using wrapped tokens. On Uniswap, for example, you can swap from wrapped BTC to ETH or the other way around. And to get wrapped BTC, there's a number of merchants, custodians and exchanges. For example, CoinList has a service where you can take native Bitcoin and mint wrapped BTC. And Binance has made wrapping practically trivial. Say that you have Bitcoin. You can wrap it on the BSC network or you can wrap it on the Ethereum network. And if you have Ethereum, you can wrap it on Binance Smart Chain or use Ethereum layer 2. But the Binance wrapped BTC on the Ethereum network is not the same as the wrapped BTC we just looked at, even though that's also on the Ethereum network. In fact, if we go here, we can see exactly how much tokens have been wrapped by Binance, and it's a lot. 116,000 BTC, 9,900 BTC wrapped in ERC20 tokens, and 105,000 BTC wrapped in BEP20 tokens. You can see here on BSC scan how people are using this all the time. And if we look at Ethereum, there's 1.4 million ETH wrapped on the Binance Smart Chain. But there are also other sources of wrapped tokens. Here we have a few thousand wrapped BNB on the Ethereum network by Wormhole. Wormhole. Bridges have a logical error actually. Actually, they don't work. Wormhole bug, that has been fixed. But there is a logical error with all multi-chain bridges that can't be fixed. I explained this in detail in the Wormhole video. Don't miss that one if you haven't seen it. You can watch it after this. What works is a centralized bridge, which is an exchange, where you always have a manual kill switch on withdrawals and so on. So what Celsius X is building works, Binance works, but these generic fast mint and burn bridges between blockchains actually don't work. They won't work long term. So yes, native swap is super useful. This is real. Our Viking was right. There is gold at the horizon. But there's also serpents in the sea. This one guy picked up actually, complexity. If we look at some Uniswap code, there actually isn't that much code here. Perhaps when I'm scrolling now it looks like a lot, but it really isn't. This is easy to review, easy to verify that it's correct. Apparently THORChain is something like 200,000 lines of code. But if any of you is a programmer, you know that 200,000 lines of code isn't that much either. I have more experience with software complexity than most. In the telecom systems we have hundreds of millions of lines of code and we still got it to work to the point where no one even thinks about it. You just take out your mobile phone, it's on 4G or 5G, you open Twitter and it just works. So while I have a lot of respect for complexity, I also know that it's possible to make software work, but it requires a certain ways of working and you can't change it too much. You can't introduce too many new features because sooner or later you're going to introduce something that breaks it all. And the hack and the history has proven that it is a sea serpent to take seriously. And there is another one. Will privacy be prohibited? Privacy on blockchain, most people have gotten backwards. I covered that in this, if I may say so myself, quite funny video. Watch it even if you're not interested in that project. I think it's educational, but there is a high risk that regulators decide that Bitcoin and Ethereum or any other asset acquired here on THORChain becomes tainted and that you can't exchange them to fiat anymore. Then, of course, a service like THORChain becomes much less useful if using it gets your account banned, despite you having done nothing wrong. Just exchanged Bitcoin to Ethereum or whatever, with full proof of history on the transaction. So here's the score so far. Exceptionally useful, industry-changing level useful, too complex, will it be banned? And there's another one. Will the leadership drop out? Guy and others have talked about key people leaving. Not so many people plow down 4 years of their life, full time into a project for the goodness of their heart alone. There has to be more at stake. Not only for us as investors, but there has to be life-changing money on the line to push through usually. And is there? Let's figure that one out, because it's key. So at this point, it doesn't look so great. Which one will weigh over? Will the gold weigh over? Or will one of these risks play out? Which one is it? I'll tell you exactly how I will deal with that. But first, we have to get a few things more up on our map. There's one more looming serpent in the deep, dark waters. And that's the supply emissions, because if hundreds of millions of dollars worth of free tokens start unlocking in people's wallets, I'm gonna stay away for a while. Then we might not need to worry about which one of these will play out, because price will probably tank first regardless of this, and then perhaps recover later when they're done selling. So for that reason I spent quite a lot of effort trying to understand this in detail. With team and seed starting to unlock here. First I started with this chart from Mesari, which Guy used also. And then it looks like here in January, February 2022, all these ones are actually done. And this would show that the IDO reserves, the pre-sales investors, the seed investors, the team and advisors and the community reserves are all already minted. And that the operations reserved are almost all minted too, which would only leave then the Thor nodes rewards and the liquidity incentives to be issued. But unfortunately, I think this chart is completely wrong, or at least misleading. Then I read this article from February 13th, 2022, and it says all transactions will be done on-chain, community members can track on the following address. Unfortunately, I couldn't really interpret this in a way that I felt confident about. So this one was dangerously close to going up on this side of the scale. But then I asked for help, and this guy really helped out. Definitely follow him, he has lots of insights. And he actually got the details from the core team for me. And let's go through it together, because this is super critical. If we don't get this right, nothing of the rest matters short term. So vesting. Team and seed investors elected to lock indefinitely until mainnet is delivered. Mainnet is still not delivered, so still locked 4 years after start of the project. Vesting is a mainnet cliff, and then 12 months vesting, 20% every 3 months. Impatient seed investors was given the option to sell back to Treasury at a discount. Up to 1/3 of seed investors elected to do this in the last 4 years, and sold from 3 cents to $3. Treasury resold the allocation to new investors for a small spread. Token terms as per vesting. Node unlock. In Q1 2022, node count was slow, so Treasury gave all seed investors an option to receive their rune immediately to commit to a node. Conversion rates are high and expected to go higher still. Potentially as much as 30 million rune could end up under these terms. Summary. Team and seed locked until mainnet or early unlock via node commitment. And here it comes, as per quantity. Team 50 million rune, 10% of 500 million total, subsequently reduced to 35 million, with 15 million, meaning the rest, sold to new investors to raise capital for treasury in 2020. Seed was 26 million rune, about 5%. So a max of 15 million, which were these that were sold to new investors, plus 26 million, which were the seed investors, equals 41 million, is eligible for node terms. And out of those 41 million, around 35 million has elected to go for node terms. So then we see that this Excel sheet that's on the THORChain Medium site that looked really scary, with team and seed starting to unlock here pretty much the whole time from now until March 2023, which would have made me stay away until then, is actually out of date. And we now know what has happened with the 50 million team token and the 26 million seed tokens. And these node terms that they talk about is this. They get access to their rune, but they need to lock them up again in Thor node bonds in 12 months, or this planned obsolescence, meaning everything is up and running, whichever comes first. So actually this is pretty good in my opinion. And here's a suggestion to the team. 2 things. Number 1, clarify this, because this is very difficult to read out somewhere. And number 2, now it says team and seed locked until mainnet or early unlock via node commitment. I suggest to change that from being until mainnet is launched to instead being that it's launched and holding up for like 6 months or whatever. Those of you who have been on the channel for some time, you remember what I said about ADA. This was their big launch, their smart contract activation that they had worked on for 4 years. That was here. I said it then and I'm saying it again, there is always a risk of a buy the rumor, sell the news event. So don't reinforce that. Don't be the guys who get an unlock when it's launched. Be the guys who stick around, make sure it holds up, and then when it's growing, when there is a big success, then that's a well-deserved moment to reap the rewards. And if we can get that confirmation, we can move not only the mission schedule from this side to this side, but we can move the other one to the team motivation from this side to that side. So really take that suggestion seriously, guys. Maybe that's already what you're planning to do, I'm not sure. But in that case, maybe just make it even clearer, even more explicit. And then there is one more opportunity. XHV integration really adds a capability that doesn't exist elsewhere. I'm sure you've all seen my XHV video. Because then THORChain becomes a bridge between native Bitcoin or ETH or whatever, and a native decentralized stablecoin with privacy features. That doesn't exist today with liquidity, and that is transformational for the whole crypto industry. And our new Chad friend here writes that after Terra, next up are likely Cosmos, Haven, which is XHV, and Avalanche. And I think that the potential impact of the Haven XHV integration is underestimated by many. But wait, there's more. Deterministic price. On THORChain.org we can read, by economic design, Rune's market cap should be a minimum 3x the value of all non-Rune assets, locked into THORChain liquidity pools. And non-Rune assets can be BTC, ETH and so on. And here we can read that the non-Rune TVL is 142 million, times 3, divided by Rune circulating supply, 300 million. And then we get that the Rune price should be minimum $1.42. And then if you go on this analysis site, we see that that matches. Deterministic price $1.41. Rune today is $8.27, divided by 142. We get that there's a speculative multiplier of little over 5. Price has recently gone up, that's probably why the numbers display a little differently on this analysis site. You can see on this site, about half is BTC and ETH. BUSD also quite big. And we can see the 1-year APY, excluding impermanent loss here. So what to do? Now we sit with these things. Can you predict any of these? Team motivation, perhaps we can, but can you predict if the complexity is so monumental that in the end it won't work out? THORChain has been hacked, Haven XHV has been hacked. This is difficult stuff and it's a lot of code. Each time it can probably be sorted out with rollbacks or fixes or whatever, but if it gets hacked too many times, people may lose trust in it. Can you predict how that will turn out? I can't. Or can you predict if privacy will become an obvious part of blockchain protocols, just like HTTPS? Or will it be totally banned and all my personal transactions must be viewable to the world by law? I think I know what the final outcome will be, because there's only one of those two that's reasonable, but it might take 10 years for the lawmakers to understand what they are deciding, and the first decision could be a gut reaction out of fear for the unknown. As I think many people have realized this past year, after listening to a lot of end of 2021 price predictions that simply didn't come true, is that predicting the future is pretty difficult. If you can predict the future, great! Or if you have discovered someone on Twitter who can predict the future for you, even greater. Good luck to you. I can't predict the future, and I haven't found anyone who can. How I deal with uncertainty instead is like this. First, I determine if it is possible, reasonably possible, that it can go up enough to make it worthwhile the risk. And in this particular case, that's pretty easy to determine, because we have this minimum deterministic price depending on if the protocol usage picks up. I showed the Anchor protocol from Terra in this video about Terra Luna. Definitely watch it if you haven't. I think it's very interesting. An Anchor protocol has currently $15.9 billion in total value locked. So $15,954 million. Then let's assume that 50% of that is non-Rune. That's $7.9 billion. Times 3 according to the formula, divided by circulating supply. And say that that has gone up a little bit by that time, maybe everything is unlocked. Say 400 million tokens. Then we get a minimum deterministic price of almost $60. Then in that situation, this would be very hyped, and there would still be a speculative multiplier for sure. Today it's over 5. Let's be conservative and say that it has dropped to 3 at that time. Times 3. Then we get a Rune price of $180. Today Rune is $8.10 divided by 8.1, so that's a 22x upside. Definitely worth the risk. So even if there's only a 10% chance that it goes 20x and 90% chance that it goes to 0, an example, not a prediction. So if you operate like a VC, you take many such bets as uncorrelated as possible in both type of projects and in time, very important. Then you hold to the moon or to 0 and hope that you pick the few ones that worked out to compensate for the vast majority that went to 0. That is a sound strategy. The mistake that most people are doing is that they're doing that but with one or a few such projects. That's not a sound strategy mathematically. I cover this in detail in my course, and this video would be too long if I repeat it here. But even that sound strategy can be improved on, in my opinion. The improvement is to try to hold it through the uptrends only. Get out from the downtrends. That sounds painfully simple, but if you've been investing for some time, you know that it's not. That's why I developed my tools and process and launch online and all that over several years. So if we look at Rune to USD first, we had this extremely simple uptrend here, which was super easy to trade. For those of you who haven't taken my course, just to clarify that the process isn't the indicator alone, it's also some basic TA. So in this case, you would probably gotten in somewhere here, maybe about 60 cents, and you would have gotten out here at about $12. A nice 20x. Then it's been a little choppy with a couple of fake outs actually. But here was a pretty high confident entry. That was the third time that this support held, and we bounced off that. An entry there would have risked very little on the downside because it actually never broke down, and there was a chance to get in there. But like many other altcoins, I think that this is potentially much clearer on the BTC chart. You can see here in 2020 it was this support line that held, price stayed in a range, broke out from there, found support at this support level, that was resistance from here, got the big run up, turned down, and has been in a range ever since. The process isn't only the indicator, you also need to use stop loss and things like that. So in this situation here in November 2021, you would probably have gotten faked out here. Large line flipped gold, this key resistance level broke through, and it looked great. This would have been a valid entry. And that's why it's so important to have stop loss, because then you would have gotten stopped out when that support broke again. It was a fake. But then we went down here and look how strong support we found at this level, which has been support here and here and here. And 13th of February, 25th of February, 1st of March. And then price ran back up. And if we zoom in, we see that large line has just flipped gold again. And the confirmation would of course be a solid breakout from this resistance level, which is not so far from here now. In a range, the valid two common strategies is either to buy the range support, which would be here, or to buy the range breakout with a stop loss below. On the USD chart, we're pretty far from the range support now, but it's very positive that price broke through this key level like butter. So if you wanted to risk an entry here, that would probably be where to put the stop loss. Or wait for a solid gold flip that will come soon if price holds these levels. Buying range support is always a valid strategy, and so is buying a gold flip, meaning the beginning of an uptrend which might continue for a long time, or it might be a fake, then we exit and try the entry again. Now, 3 important things before the conclusion. There are so many scammers and impersonators. The only place you can get the Larsen line indicator is on www.ctolarson.com. Everything else is a scam. Don't fall for it, please. Number 2, if you find this content useful, please like, subscribe and bell if you haven't already, because the YouTube algo isn't my friend. Number 3, I'm not your financial advisor. I don't know your personal situation, so I can't advise you what to do. THORChain RUNE, if they succeed, will have 3 things that doesn't exist anywhere else in the crypto industry today. Number 1, native cross-chain DEX. Number 2, a predictable floor price on the token based on actual utilization of the network. And number 3, if they manage to integrate XHV, have a stable coin with privacy features with good liquidity, then your neighbor can't check your USD balance while you can still show evidence to, for example, your tax authority using viewing keys. The 2 remaining risks or threats are complexity and a ban. And if the team clarifies that their unlock is not at the point of the mainnet launch, it's sometime after, when it has proven that it holds up, I think we can move the token issuance schedule and the leadership continuity to the gold side. Now, if approaching this or any other project with huge upsides and huge risks on the downside, in my opinion, the way to deal with that is not trying to predict the future, but instead to react what actually happens in the present. And hang on during uptrends, get out during downtrends, and use stop loss on entries and other parts of the process. When I'm recording this, there are logic entries here on the USD chart, and we just had one logical entry on the BTC chart, and we're getting very close to another one if this breaks through. So there are actually logical entries here. So as of this time, Rune gets a thumbs up from your CTO. Thank you, Tack. CTO Larsen out. Hej då! The basement of this building is from the Middle Ages. In Sweden, we build stuff to last.